everyone, this is Image Gamer, and I'll be returning to Old World, where I'll be continuing talking about modding. There's probably gonna be a bit less modding and more explaining, because I did some modding off screen, but I do want to update the changes here because I mean, in a way, I kind of like the idea of being able to document not only on my mod description, but also on my YouTube channel and on Twitch. If anyone watches this, I don't think anyone cares. Alright, that's generally what happens when you're a new modder. How should I put it? You're generally not someone that most people will pay attention to. But it's fine. It's I never expect to be noticed a ton early on, so it takes time to build any sort of following, whether if it's Twitch, YouTube, or even in modding communities. It's totally understandable, so I have nothing against it. And right now I am modding. Well, not modding. Right now I'm changing the description. But I do need to double check a few things before I completely load everything into, like, upload it properly. It's a pretty big update. Like so far I'm fortunate that the tools available are pretty straightforward. Now, to be fair, I haven't done any complicated modding just yet. Like, there will be modding done for the DLL. I'm just not there yet. I'm still working on a bunch of smaller things. Let's just put it that way. I really wish sometimes tools are... Yeah, there are some changes. I will talk about it very shortly. I just need to make sure. Actually, did I even spell Saressa? Okay, I did. Yeah, it's always funny when you're looking at a lot of the, or at least look at the autocorrect. You're like, there is that term. It exists, but for whatever reason, nobody bothered adding those into the dictionary. Which is kind of annoying, but, you know, just deal with it, I guess. I mean, you can still complain like me. Just that, as long as you know complaining doesn't change anything, then I think we're good. Just saying. Why are there so many spaces here? Yeah, you won't see this. Probably a good thing. Okay. So, I added a bunch of things. And by a bunch, I mean, you know, compared to previously. So this is like one of my bigger updates, to put it simply. Let's see. I also need to add this assets like art can be added. Yes, an artist is willing. Oh. So yeah, art is definitely something I'm terrible at. So I don't see myself really dabble in that anytime soon. But anyways, let's talk about the changes. There's a fair bit. I like the changes, but I mean, I made the mods, so I'm very subjective in that. But right? If you're not proud of your own creation, why do you make it? That's what I think. Anyways, first, chariots. We have light chariots, heavy chariots, same kind of logic as before. We have the light variants being faster, weaker, cheaper, and then the heavy variants being stronger. And one thing I decided to do is, for the chariot and Horseman line. Actually, at least for the stronger versions, give them melee strength versus infantry. The reason why, at least the way I justify it, is that Spearman is a bit niche, in my opinion, compared to the other units. They are anti-mounted, but if your opponent doesn't have any mounted, then they don't really have a place, because there are axemen, there are macemen, and they just outdo spearmen in a lot of areas. Now, if I make units like chariots and horsemen, mounted melee units, not mounted range units, that's a whole different thing that I'm not tackling yet. For mounted melee units, if I give them bonuses against infantry units, what that will do is it will make them more threatening, right? Because when you look at range units like skirmishers, archers, and axemen, they're all infantry. So if your mounted melee units have bonus against those, that means they're even more deadly. But how do you counter? And by being more deadly, it means that you're more likely to build cavalry units or mounted units. I'm used to call it cavalry. Mounted units. And because there are more mounted units, what ends up happening is you will probably be at least more likely be focusing on your polearms. And there aren't many polearms. I was thinking about adding more like units between spearmen and pikemen, but it's kind of odd because I can't really find any units in between. So instead what I did was, so in addition to these spearmen, I also moved up Sarissa sooner. So Sarissa, you only need manor. So I don't know why this is highlighted. Then you... What? I'm so confused now. Does Sarissa need... Okay, now I'm very confused. Why is that being highlighted? Sarissa should only require manor, yeah. Manor requires composite bow and then consolidation. Okay, I was like so confused. Because, like, you know how if you hover over a tech, it shows you the path? Yeah, that kind of threw me off. I'm like, why is it going to composite? Like, I set it to prerequisite manor, but okay, that's fine. Because composite is a prerequisite manor, so I'm fine with that. So what I did is, I moved Sarissa earlier. I don't even know why it was in the back. Like, it's so weird because, like I said, Spearman just has such a long period where it's just not very viable. Now it's moved sooner because before not only was it moved to the back, it also cost 3,200 beakers, which is a lot. Now it's cheaper. You could get it sooner. I will probably have to work on this. This is on my to-do list, the pikemen. So now it's like on par with Swordsman and all of that. Whoops, I'm not supposed to spoil that yet. Anyways, like I said, Chariot got light and heavy version. And they also have their upgrades, right? Light Chariot, Light Horseman, Horseman, Heavy Chariot, Horseman, or Heavy Horseman. And then that's it for Chariot. And I also felt it was really awkward to go from a Chariot into a Horse Archer. Because one is melee, one is range. I know some promotions are like limited to melee or range. I don't know if that breaks anything, but just to make it a bit more consistent, I decided to add the Chariot Archer, right? So you have a Chariot Archer, same HP as archers, one more movement, one less range, same strength. It ignores zone of control, consumes food instead of wood, and cost food and wood. It's a bit cheaper than archer. I think it's gonna be alright. Right? Actually, maybe that doesn't make sense. Because I remember, well, at least historically, chariot archers are more expensive, right? It's generally, you generally have fewer numbers. But for this gameplay wise, I think I'll wait until I get some sort of feedback before I change anything. Because the thing about archers is that they need wood. And wood is depending on your surroundings. Like let's look at the map I wrote here. This is actually pretty nice for. This is actually not bad for archer. Like there are definitely enough forests to make it work. But that's the thing, right? You don't always roll the strong starts for archers, so I feel like this might give. Of course, if chariot archers are just like, I mean, chariot archers also need horses. So if you don't have horses, archers and or skirmishers might be your choice. I mean, skirmishers also cost food. They cost a bit more, but they do have bonus against forearms, and they're a little tankier in that they have a bit more health. So I'm curious how this dynamic will work. Okay, so chariot archer, that doesn't feel weird, right? You don't have a melee unit that upgrades into your rage unit. That just feels awkward in many ways. And afterwards, we have light horsemen and heavy horsemen. Now, it's similar as before, the same logic. Heavy horsemen, though, it's kind of interesting because, I mean, heavy horsemen is what I was talking about earlier. I decided to add, I gave them attack strength. A chariot, a melee strength. I want to change that. So, from my understanding, melee strength is that in melee combat, you get that bonus, right? Attack strength it only happens when you're attacking. I think I might want to change that. So I want to change it so that for heavy chariots, they only get that bonus when they're attacking, not when they're defending. Because it actually makes a deal, a pretty big deal, when you think about it. Because the way I think of cavalry, now people might differ in their thoughts. The way I approach is that cavalry are made for flanking, made for charges. If they are bogged down, they are not as powerful. They are not using, right? If you want combat where you're being bogged down, and sorry about that, I don't know why, but apparently even though my mouse is on another window, it actually selects things on the tech tree. I'm like, that's interesting. So yeah, the way I think of it is cavalry, they excel when they're flanking, when they're attacking, during their charges. But when they are bogged down, they are stationary, they are defending themselves. They're not using their greatest strength, which is their mobility, their ability to use the momentum of the horse to crush the enemy, right? So the change is not implemented. I will reload the mod. I just want to check through everything to make sure I haven't missed anything else. But yeah. So I have a horseman. They're actually pretty strong now. 7 strength. Heavy maceman. Yeah, I guess they're not stupidly powerful. But heavy maceman has like no bonuses against it, and it has bonus against heavy maceman, so I actually do like the more HP aspect. It feels nicer. It just feels weird where all the units have the same amount of health, and it tend to, in my opinion, make melee units weaker because range units have same amount of health. They might take a bit more damage, but melee units have to move a lot more, get close and personal, and that is not always favorable, especially when your opponent has like 5 archers. You could probably fend off a lot of attacks. So, after the Horsemen, oh yeah, I changed War Elephant. Now they have 30 health instead of 20. That puts them on par with Heavy Horsemen. Does that make sense? I mean, they do come sooner. 120 training. They take longer to build. 125, 75. They are a bit cheaper. They also don't hit as hard as... Oh, looking at this, I'm like, I don't know. Health might be something I want to look at. I mean, Horsemen... Wait, do they cost... Okay, they do cost a fair bit. Also make it War Elephants ignore zone control. I don't know why they would care about zone control. They're elephants. Like, elephants don't care. Wow. Charging elephants don't really care about zone control. They're going to mow you down regardless. So that felt kind of ridiculous. But that's a good question. Do I want to buff the health on the War Elephant? Because it takes slightly longer to build. They're slightly cheaper in terms of resources, but they don't have as many bonuses as the Heavy Horsemen. Maybe I'll just give them 40 HP. Seems like the simplest quick fix without needing to change a bunch of things. So Heavy Horseman hits a bit harder, but War Elephant will be able to tank more hits better. And now that they ignore zone of control, they didn't for whatever reason before, actually made them, like, they already only have 2 mobility. If you start making them not ignore zone of control, they're a bit harder to utilize. At least that's what I think. And for those of you who has a good attention to detail, you'll notice that War Elephant actually upgrades to something. Armored Elephants, which is unlocked at Martial Code. Yeah, these guys are already buffed their HP. They're at 50. The War Elephant will be 40. Armor Elephants will be 50. And that will make them actually pretty scary as a whole. Actually, what changes did I make? Shoot, I forgot to. Actually forgot. Alright. Maybe I'll remember it later, maybe not. Because I need the description to be as accurate as it can be. So War Elephant will have 40 HP, ignore zone of control. Period. Alright, no, the earlier change was... Actually, did I even... Heavy Horseman attack... That's interesting. Did I actually... No, both are attack strength. Okay. There's something I didn't update in the description. Attack strength and melee strength are 2 very different things. But right now, Horsemen, light horsemen, and heavy horsemen all have bonuses against siege units. Yeah, I still need to get units. there's quite a bit of things to pay attention to. Attack strength or heavy chariot. Let's save that. What else have I also included? We have those armor elephants. The armor elephants. They have the most strength than any unit so far. They have 10. 50 HP. Now, them having melee strength, it makes more sense. Because even close by, I mean, you're in melee range of an elephant. You get stomped, you get trampled. it's not fun. So they will have a pretty big bonus against infantry, and my hope is to. I mean, pikemen is still pretty strong. The melee strength bonus is 100%. They might be enough, but we'll see. And so, armor elephants also ignore summon control. They have rout and panic. They take quite a bit of time to build, actually. They take 150 training. But to compare it, this is 120, 100, 120. So really? That's one thing I don't get. Right, these late game units. Cataphracts. I mean, actually, let's see. At least not what I don't get, but what I don't like. Like, some of these units are already unlocked very late. Cataphracts cost 3,200. It's pretty much an end game unit that most people never even see. Like, I'm not a good player, so I don't end games quickly. But I know better players end their games like turn 50 something, 70 something, sometimes at most 100, right? And you're never going to see this unit. Now, I understand if they, increase the build time, but at that late of the stage, maybe it's better to make it faster to get them so that you will see them in action. Or maybe you're just upgrading existing units. That's also an option. Oh yeah, naval units. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with naval units. Naval is so weird. It's so map dependent. Sometimes you don't see any. And sometimes, at least I've been in situations where naval units becomes a pain to deal with. How do I? So like, Barim. Because of their strength, they are really hard to kill off, right? They're unlocked in navigation, same column as Archer. Archer has 5 strength. Archer, you need a ton of shots to hurt them, while the Barim is like shakes it off and deal a lot more damage. So that is always interesting. Sure. Anyways, that's a whole different topic. So yeah, armor elephants will be. I hope it's gonna be fun, like the way I set it up. And then we have swordsmen, right? We have light, heavy. Heavy swordsmen will have the biggest bonus. Not quite 100%, but 75% is pretty solid with 9 strength. That's why, see, heavy swordsmen, like before armor elephant, I decided to have 40 HP and 9 strength. But I'm like, heavy swordsman, 9 strength, 35. It makes it so that an armor elephant doesn't seem that impressive. So by changing war elephant to 40, the elephant will still be tankier, or at least have more health than your heavy swordsman. And now armored elephant will have 15 more HP. Hit much harder from base, and its bonus should allow it to beat at least one-on-one a heavy swordsman fairly convincingly. So it does take a bit longer to build, so there is that. And the standard swordsman, did I not change it? Oh, I didn't. Huh. That's why I need to test these before I do anything, because I'm like, I don't see the 30 health for our swordsman. And that's important. Like, I have it in my notes. Yes, I think I do. I'm pretty sure I did include it. Yeah, elephant 40, swordsman 30. Okay. Now I'm going to reload to check if every change I implemented is indeed included. This will be version 0.3, which is going to be interesting. So I haven't like thought in detail, but I am leaning towards maybe certain light and or heavy units being gated behind certain nations, right? Maybe, I mean, I don't know historically what's the most accurate, but let's talk about that a bit later. Let me check a few things just to make sure. The elephants have 40 health, perfect. Your base swordsman has 30 health, excellent. And they have attack strength versus infantry, very good. Attack, attack, attack. Yeah, siege units aren't going to like heavy horsemen very much. That bonus might allow heavy horsemen to cripple most. So you better protect your siege units. I did notice in my games that sometimes the AI doesn't do a very good job protecting their siege units. That's probably an AI thing. I don't know if maybe eventually I'll dabble in it. AI is tough. AI is one of the tougher things to program, let alone mod, right? Mod, you could change some values, but man, it's a challenging thing to do. Yeah, Cataphract still needs some love. I think what I'll do is I'll move Barding over to this column and have Torsion and Stirrups being its prerequisite. Also make it 1600 Beakers, because some of these are just coming way too late. Like this unit, Polybolus. I play late games. Like I played up to like turn 170 something. I still don't think I ever built a single one of these. I probably barely even unlocked the tech, if at all, because at that point, either the game is very much over, or there's just no reason to build it because there are other techs that are a bit more. Oh, there are strength against ranged. Ooh. Okay, that is something I might consider. Yeah, that's like one thing I'm thinking is melee mounted units. Maybe they'll have strength versus ranged, but in that case, your I want to make the spear forearms line a bit more viable. But maybe I'll give them like also strength versus ranged. Right. They will have some strength versus infantry and strength versus ranged. So that for range units, using them to fight the enemy mounted melee units is probably your worst decision. And that will still make mounted units fairly dangerous, so you do want polearms to deal with them. That might be something I'll consider for the next iteration. Currently, and there's also this crossbow. I built crossbows, but at that point I was winning wars so badly that they really didn't see much action. Actually, I don't even remember. I don't even remember if upgrades to crossbows. Actually, I think this is a fairly recent change. Because I remember them being melee at one point. I'm not kidding. Or at least, maybe I'm misremembering. But I recall crossbows being melee at one point. I was so confused. I'm like, why are they melee? They're supposed to be ranged, but I guess they got changed recently. Let's see. Oh, their attacks for this. Wait. Wait. They have range? Well, they said ranged, but that's a weird thing, right? It says ranged, but I don't see the range anywhere, mentioned anywhere. Are they still kind of melee, but just good against melee? Like, does crossbow really have less range than bows? Like, I don't know it. I don't know enough about weapons. But from my understanding, crossbows are adopted because the weapon itself is more mechanically complex. But that complexity has the benefit in that if you're training someone to use a crossbow versus someone using a bow, someone learning a crossbow will master sooner because it's built in a way that you need less skills, right? Compared to a bow. I'm not saying you don't need any skills. I'm just saying that at least from what I recall, those learning crossbows versus those learning bows, those learning crossbows learning faster just because the complexity of the weapon makes it so that you need less training to achieve similar mastery. That's what I remember, but that's such an point. So, let's see. Everything seems to be alright. So I'm going to upload this version and then we're going to talk about... I will be talking about the later changes. Oh, don't crash on me. I'm like, come on, game. Don't crash on me. Alright, this is 0.3. And then I'll just upload build. Mod file uploaded, good. So I do have plans. There are lots of things. I already talked about a few. Siege units, cataphracts. Another one I want to address is cities. I feel like cities are at least one of the advantages I've noticed for human players is that war is very favorable to them. like generally, it seems like human players are just overall better, right? They're stronger in their ability to war against AI, which tend to be the case in most combat games because humans are able to think much further ahead and make things work, while for what do you call it? For AI, they're programmed. They have conditions, but when you think about how a human thinks about these decisions, it's very different, right? Because what you'll notice is that you need tons of if else if conditions, and then there are even situations where you're like, this might not be optimal, but I'm gonna gamble for this because this might have a big return. Like, how do you teach an AI to do that? It's just overall tough. You also need to add change log. Oh shoot, I forgot one thing. Oops, I forgot to update and then fully update everything. And you change log. People know what's happening. So yeah, generally the human player has more advantage when it comes to combat. And I guess one way Old World does it is that the AI is given more cities. They have a stronger start. So, it makes it so that they have a better fighting chance. But ultimately, they're given bonuses to compensate for the fact that they can't fight on an even playing field. And in such a situation, it's kind of understandable. But ultimately, ideally, you have AI that can hold its own. Ultimately, at least the ideal case is that you have AI that can hold its own on even territory. That'd be really good AI, though. Like, if they're making you sweat under similar situations and makes it so that you're not guaranteed to win even when you're on par with the AI, then you'd be scared because now if you give AI bonuses, they might just win every game. But, like I said, AI is very hard to program. So I'm not criticizing them for anything like, oh, it's not great AI. Trust me, there are worse AIs. I hate to say it. There are worse AIs, and it also depends on the game, right? A lot of the mechanics, like one game I like to mention is Civ 6, where there are a lot of really cool and fun mechanics, but the AI is just incapable of using those mechanics, right? That's what happens. Yes, you might have great ideas and be like, I'll do this and I'll do that. And I might fall into the same trap, right? I'm modding and I'm like, this would be cool. I'll add this, I'll add that, and then the AI can't handle it. So that's the thing. The more complex your game is, the more necessary it is to have solid AI. Otherwise, if they can't make use of the tools available to them, then there's no point, right? It's like adding the bells and whistles, but not being able to really enjoy it because you realize that the AI is just incapable of taking full advantage of everything. So, let's see, what did I do? I added light chariot, heavy chariot, chariot archer, light horseman, heavy horseman, armored elephant, light swordsman, and heavy swordsman. And I also changed war elephant, chariot, at least the upgrade path, and swordsman. Oh wait, horseman as well. Horseman and swordsman. Changed Larissa text slightly sooner, cheaper. That's about it. Like if you look at the changelog, it isn't much. It's pretty boring, but I mean maybe I'm just a slow coder, so so it takes me longer to make things work. Just also add the changelog. Now I know I have a bit of a competition. Someone else who's also doing mods like unit changes. I'm like, it's okay. Like I said before, if right there's these different mentalities where if you are, how should I put it? If you are so focused on making mods for other people and no one plays it, you get discouraged very quickly. If you are modding it so that you can improve your own experience, is something you want to play, right? Not just other people, then it's a bit of a win-win there. Because even if nobody else plays it, you're enhancing your own experience. And I say that's pretty worth it. Now, do I still care about people playing? Of course. I mean, everybody wants to see their creation appreciated, thriving. It's not always possible, and in the early goals, it will be a bit challenging, right? Hoping to get noticed, but I like to think part of human nature, where we want attention, we want to feel recognized, feel like we're achieving something. And when we're ignored, nobody cares. It takes a toll. Okay, by being human, we just have quite a few flaws. Okay, I need to something else for my. Anyways, a few other changes that I plan on doing. A few things in addition to cataphracts, siege units, is cities. Because the thing about cities is that I think they made some changes lately. I haven't been keeping up with all the changes. I want cities to be tankier. Like cities right now, like a slinger can hit it 10 times, maybe even less than 10 times. Right, a slinger could hit it less than 10 times and drop a city to 0. I want someone to explain to me when slinger units single-handedly take defended cities. Like if you put a unit in there, yes, the unit will fight back, but if you have, let's say, a melee unit, I guess that's not a good example. But if you have walls, right? That's what we're assuming. At least what I'm assuming. I know that in theory there are walls in game, right? You have ramparts that give you walls, but I don't know why the cities start with. I mean, I can understand if they start with no walls, but the fact that like even 10 max HP, right? It means that it could take a few extra more hits, but it's still kind of crazy for me. Like the thought of cities being so vulnerable. Like as someone who played a lot of Civ 5, the fact that cities can actually fight back is pretty cool. I don't know if that's possible. I actually don't mind if cities can fight back, because it kind of simulates situations where you still have some sort of, actual garrison, right? They're not, they're kind of like militia, but these guys don't wander out of cities, but they can at least defend the city to a certain extent. Like maybe set it so that cities only have one range. So if I'm on here, I can only attack enemies that are melee. But range units can still chip away at it, but I don't want range units to be able to just take down cities like it's nothing. Now, I still need to figure out how to mod that. I'm thinking of just adding more defense, adding... Okay, let's settle this city. Capital, strength. Yeah, add strength. It's kind of buffed. I don't mind if it has a bit more health. But is strength that high? 12.7. I actually don't know what determines the strength. Base population plus 50% defense. Is that on a hill or is that due to capital? I'm not always clear on some of these. Wait, since when can you build a garrison early on? I thought garrison requires... Now I'm confused, because I thought garrison is unlocked. I don't remember the tech anymore. I still haven't played enough. Urban. Yeah, it requires sovereignty. Do I start with sovereignty? Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was like, wait, what? I mean, that stone cost is pretty hefty early on. Alright, I'm like, why am I using stone? Right, the slinger. That's a recent change. I'm still trying to adjust to it. Yeah, I do want cities to be tankier, so that the early game trying to take cities will be tougher. And that will kind of maybe buy time. So my hope, at least one of the outcomes I want to see, is that early rushing is like a huge, big risk, big reward. Because right now I feel it's not. Right now, you can get a big military, more than your opponents, and still be able to develop fairly well in your backline, and just snowball from there. I would prefer to see a situation where early rushes is possible, but you have to really think things through and plan ahead, and you have to greatly outplay the AI. Otherwise, their city will be tough, and all those resources you'll be spending on your units are not getting the dividend. So, essentially, let's say, no, let's use the map. Let's say I have a neighbor here. I think you can see me. You not? Huh. I always thought you can. Okay, you can't see my cursor. But just imagine if there's a neighbor to the east of me, who's fairly close, right? If I build a lot of units and I try to take them, maybe eventually I beat them. But because their cities are tougher, it takes me longer to capture them. What ended up happening is, while I'm investing all of these resources here, the AI to my south and southeast, they had a chance to build up the infrastructure, build it up to the point where I'm behind in civics, I'm behind in training, I'm behind in science, I'm behind in developed cities, and as a result, my odds of winning is lower because, by being behind in science, I'm behind in technology. Being behind in technology means my opponents have better units than me, and, being bogged down means that I'm hurt a lot more. Right now, it doesn't quite feel that way, so I want to set it up, and plus maybe. I do think a little about what do you call it, multiplayer, but I don't even know if anyone will actually even try it. Try my mod for multiplayer, and it will be interesting. Let's just put it that way. The thing about multiplayer is that, yes, maybe Russia getting a larger army is important, but let's say a team game, right? Let's say 4-on-4. Let's say 3-on-3. You have 2 players on the front and 1 player on the back. The 1 player is safe. The other 2 have to deal with invasions. So maybe one of the viable strategies might be the front 2 will be focused on units. The last one will aim to develop the cities, get ahead, get the necessary technologies to build a very powerful unit and use that to turn the tide, right? And by having hardier cities at the front, those 2 at the front, they might be dealing with 3 enemies that are doing the early rushes. But if they can just hold out long enough for that player in the back to get the necessary edge, and maybe your opponent is just using, let's say, spears, axemen, and archers, and your ally is bringing horsemen. Now, horsemen against spearmen might not be ideal, but heavy horsemen are still pretty dangerous. So I'm hoping something like that will happen. Whether or not it will happen, that's a whole different matter. But those are just just kind of planning a little ahead, just thinking about different options and stuff. Because sometimes, even if nobody plays my mod, I do find that sometimes it's just really fun to juggle ideas and see it come to fruition. Because sometimes you're like, I have a really good idea, and then it's like, I wonder how it will fare. But now you have sorry about that. I think there are just some idiots that don't know that they should move aside for emergency vehicles. I'm not gonna hesitate to call those people idiots because they are. Seriously. Imagine what if one day you'll be in that position, right? You'll be in the position where you need help and you're wondering why the emergency is not coming. And I'm like, well, what did you do? Did you block the way so that other people have a harder time to go where they need to go, right? Anyways, I think that just about covers it. I talked about version 0.3 changes. I don't know when I'm gonna tackle the next one, 0.4, but we'll see. Like I said, probably cities, Halifax, siege units. I don't know how far I get to siege units. Siege units are definitely interesting. I'll definitely make some that are like anti cavalry, some are anti infantry, and some are just anti city. I know it's possible. It's just a matter of me sitting down, figuring out what I want happening my mod. Anyways, I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have a good one.